in the original Star Wars, there was two suns in the sky, was there not?
Absolutely, Saturn.
Right. So that's what was flashing on me, is I'm thinking, okay, well, if our sun's going to sleep, maybe we get another one lit up while we're at it. And that might offset some of the, in some weird way.
And I thank every single one of you for joining our conversation tonight. I'm with Ted Marchildren, the developer of Omega Rotary Garden. This is an innovation that we need to be able to bring indoor vertical agriculture to feed our planet.
But that thing I sent you the other day about company towns in Nevada, where you could set up and be the law and everything, because Nevada's looking for people to move there. And when I look at Nevada, it's kind of a harsh place, but it sounds like we're heading for harshness pretty much everywhere for a certain period of time. If you follow Sitchin, this is a remote mining operation, and they show up every 3,600 years and reboot the players on the field to keep this place happening. They apparently need the gold to atomize into their atmosphere to protect them, because they were having wars and they created us, so we're doing the same things that they did. Chip off the block, and the block has issues. To those that don't know anything about this story, sitchin.com, Zachariah Sitchin's website, and you can find some amazing books. He was a very interesting researcher who took a lot of abuse over the years. They relate a lot of the later stories make up the Bible. A lot of these biblical stories have origins in Sumer, much earlier writings. People have got issues with that. Apparently Enlil, he's the great Satan, and he's an accountant. Doesn't take you too long into this research to realize that I believe that's Yahweh. So a lot of people don't like to hear this kind of stuff.
You blasphemer, you are. I wonder if they can atomize Bitcoin into their atmosphere, because it seems to be the way it's going. Maybe that's the trick. To give up, so everybody will give up their gold, like, oh, it's a worthless rock, we'll just sell it for nothing. We got this Bitcoin, and then this farm here, because I always looked at the earth as different farming techniques for different societies, and like, if they really want to stir things up and put everything in chaos, well, they would just change farming techniques. And what do we see happening in the States right now? Well, we went from a stable thing for 70 years right into communism, where there's like push into it, and it's a destabilization. There's a destabilization in currency going on from, don't worry about your old chunky metal stuff, that's so archaic, it doesn't work anymore, get rid of it.
Because I always thought about it as Jupiter Ascending, that movie is
and then here's
such
the harvest.
a clarity and wake up of the Earth is a farmed planet, and the farming techniques are different. So, you could take that with whatever way you want to, but I would assure and ask everybody to watch Jupiter Ascending to understand that the base colony was on Jupiter and the Earth was a farm.
Well, according to Sitchin, the gold processing was being done before the flood. It was being done on Mars. And so they originally thought they were going to be able to get the gold from the water. And Enki, or Ea, he's the smart one. He's the scientist. He shows up to do that. They didn't get enough gold from it, so they had to do hard rock mining. And that's when they went into the Absu, or South Africa, and started digging there for the gold. And they processed and moved gold for apparently like 200,000 years before the lesser gods, small g, revolted. And it might have had something to do with Enki, because Enki and Enlil, they're half brothers. They're fighting. Enki's the firstborn but his mother was a concubine, or maybe the girlfriend or something, and the half sister of the king, Anu. That's her firstborn is Enlil, so he's second. He's next born to Enki, but he ends up blind to the throne. So Enki had a problem with that, and then they kind of worked things out, but they had offspring here, and they fought, and then Enlil's offspring fought with his own offspring, and the same thing happened with Enki. And Enki's firstborn was Marduk, or Amun-Ra, and we've all heard of Ra, the Egyptian god. And then, all this stuff sounds fanciful, when you're reading about it, but then when you get into Sitchin's work, you realize this stuff actually happened.
Yeah, go back to Marduk as well, and if you go back into Sumeria before the Assyrians, and you come back into that area of Babylonia further back 7,000 years ago or so, Marduk is right there, and you start to see all this iconography and different stone carvings and whatnot to, explain that. And this is another thing that I was trying to explain with the second magnetic field forming in the outer solar system. What Sumerians would count from the outer planets in, because you got to realize if you're transiting time-space and you're coming into our solar system, you're going to count from Pluto, Neptune, and you're going to come in Saturn, and you're going to come in Jupiter, and then Mars. Well, I'm saying the same exact thing. This secondary magnetic field is starting to form in the outer solar system with Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune creating a square in 2024, October. But think about that. The Earth is only going to be 2 planets away from that second magnetic field forming. If Jupiter is the last planet that's creating an electromagnetic field coupling with Saturn and the other gas giants out there, well, then we only have Mars and then the Earth. So we're going to be the second planet from that slight new magnetic field in 2024, and then we have the sun, and we're the third planet from the sun. So in a torus and a toroid magnetic looping field, which Michael Tellinger's super into, but he's really into the what happened with Adam's calendar and that whole going back 400,000 years or so. The Earth's going to be sandwiched between 2 magnetic fields now in our solar system. This normally does not happen. The last time this magnetic field formed in such precision of almost a perfect square was 79 AD. Because when you go back in the planetary, the positioning, or they call it planetary geometry for the proper term, but where the planets sit in their degrees of tilt or arc off of each other, this is only 1 degree out of 360 degrees, only 1 degree difference. We have to go back to 79 AD to find something even remotely similar. Now, I'm sure if we went further back in the past, we could find a precise, exact, 1-for-1, not even 1 degree off, 100% match. But the closest that any of the planetary diagrams, or the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, or like Solar System Scope, or any of these others that you use to trace planets back in their orbits in different times, the first I could ever go back was like 2,500 years ago, like 500 BC. So I'm sure somebody has planetary geometry diagrams that go back tens of thousands of years where we could find an exact match. But aside of that, we're in a 2,000-year cycle coming up in 2024 October. The reason I say that is because we're only 2 planets away from the new magnetic field, and that's exactly the same way that the Sumerians in Sitchin had described how the Anunnaki, when they came into our solar system, had counted us, and the first planet, the second. Well, we weren't the third planet. We were counting in from the outer solar system, coming back Mars and then Earth.
In the original Star Wars, there was 2 suns in the sky, was there not?
Absolutely, Saturn.
Right. So that's what was flashing on me, is I'm thinking, okay, well, if our sun's going to sleep, maybe we get another one lit up while we're at it, and that might offset some of the, in some weird way.
No, the electromagnetic coupling, I believe what you just talked about there is real, because you got to think about, it's almost like the stock market. Nothing goes to zero, it's transferred. Transfer of wealth, transfer of electromagnetic field across the solar system. If the sun's stepping down, then something else is balancing that charge elsewhere. And you've already seen the atmosphere of Pluto collapsed in on itself. The atmosphere of Neptune reversed 6 months later. And now we're starting to see the Uranus atmosphere behaving strangely, starting to split at the equator at the moment. And see, these are 6-month intervals. So if there is a distribution or nothing goes to zero, that the same amount of charge is now distributed to different heavenly bodies in our solar system, something else could start to ignite, because Jupiter and Saturn are both, well, Jupiter more to the point, an unignited star brown dwarf. So think about that. If we're going to start to move and have balance of charge in the solar system, something else is going to have to ignite and glow brighter, will it not?
It would make for quite an interesting sunset, that's for sure.
Yeah, and imagine if the sun turned sort of this bluish tinge that, John Casey's book, Cold Sun, the first, he went into the blue angstrom wavelengths, and I think he was leaving us a message that perhaps the next step down, because you got to think Roy G. Biv, because our sun has gone from yellow to white. Now, will it go red or will it go blue? It can only go one of those two. There's only, it's choice A or choice B. Is it going to go blue or go red? What do you think?
Well, I prefer blue.
Me too. It's a cooler color.
I don't like being around the red light. And if you've done much indoor growing, the red light's annoying.
Got to put on the glasses, don't you?
Yeah, and you're left with this red thing, even for a long time after you get out of that room. You're left with this kind of red vision.
Yep.
Whereas the blue is much more comfortable. You were talking about transfer of wealth. So after that first question, it might have been the second or third question, and I asked the oracle, give me the big picture about the invention, meaning the rotary wheel, the rotary garden. And I pulled number 42 to 12. 42 is thunder under wind. This is the idea of increase expressed in the fact that the strong lowest line of the upper trigram has sunk down and taken its place under the lower trigram. This conception also expresses the fundamental idea on which the Book of Changes is based. To rule truly is to serve. A sacrifice of the higher element that produces an increase in the lower is called an out-and-out increase. It indicates the spirit that alone has power to help the world. And when I read that, I thought, no pressure there. So in the element of above, I had somebody make me a bit of an animation that had a spiral nebula, and the spiral nebula sort of spit out the garden, and the garden descended to the planet, and then it went under what's below. So if you're looking down at the planet, you're seeing the roofs. It's not a glass roof. It's underground, or it's under a solid roof. So then you go inside and you see something. I made it look like the last image of the Raiders of the Lost Ark, where they put the Ark of the Covenant in that warehouse, and then they back out, and it's just miles and miles, or acres and acres of warehouse. So instead of it being boxed up in that container, it was just an image of thousands upon thousands of stacked up rotary gardens. That was 20 some years ago, and at the time I had no idea that we would ever be in a condition where that could actually come to fruition. However, now I'm looking at it going, well, geez, we better figure out how to do this. And if we only get one done, it has to be like a colony, so that it can support building the next one. So that's where the habitat ring comes in. It's not just a bunch of people who have Bitcoin and don't have any skills. You need a village. So you need a doctor, and you need a shoemaker, and you need everybody else who makes up a village, because that might be all you get. And And then you want to be able to, again, have people who can fabricate stuff and build things and make the next one, make the next one. You know, I keep seeing stuff about Elon wanting to colonize the galaxy and go to Mars and all those things. And I'm like, man, we do not have what it takes yet, and unless you know, do your dry run here and get the bugs worked out. You know, we saw this with, what was that thing they did in Nevada? Biosphere 2. And they talked about, before it was done, you know, oh, we're just the greatest thing since sliced bread, yada, yada, yada. And then they locked those people and those animals into the thing, and I think it was breached within hours. You know, the gases went nutty, and the animals started booting their way out through the glass, and the people were sneaking chocolate bars in, and just all kinds of crazy stuff happened. And if you were on Mars, you know, you'd be wondering, what's all this junk lying around here?
Yeah, that was in Cydonia, right?
Right. And I'm up in the wee hours in the morning. I think it was the first year that CNN was on the air, and Southern Ontario, and I'm watching this image of the whatever it is. It's flying over the surface, and it's analyzing these different shapes. And there's a counter at the bottom that's calculating the odds of natural occurrence. Well, it hits those pyramids, and it hits that face, and the odds of natural occurrence, according to the bottom of the screen, were 0.